So, there I was, knee-deep in hand grenade pins and brass.
That's how every good military story starts. Come on. So there I was.
So there I was. Now, everybody is going to see this, and they're going to be like, wow, all right, that makes sense. But what is going to be different about this show, right? What's going to be different about the way Rut and Lex get on the mic together? And so before I get into that, first I want to say to everybody, thank you so much. I really appreciate the outpouring of love that I've been experiencing from all of you has just been remarkable. And the support for me coming back and getting on the mic again has been incredible. And I just thank you. God bless you. I love you all very much. All right. First thing I think I needs to happen is I gotta reference, because the last time we did a show has been a long time, man.
Yeah, it's been a few years,
It's been a few years. It was 15. And
we're both a lot grayer, and thank God I'm a little bit skinnier.
Bro, you look good, dude.
Well, you know what it is? It's all that on it, man. I'm just feeling like ripped. I gotta talk to Aubrey, man. Like, he's got it.
Dude, I mean, I've actually dropped weight because of it too, man. That's crazy, man. But I think when everybody wants to, I mean, I always think when I see people and their friendships, right, I always want to know how they met and what was it about it that they met and what brought them together. And so, you know, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that first night we were together. And it was at Jason Redmond at his book signing, because Jay had actually gone to Boca High for a little bit and lived in Boca and was down here, and it was at the Irish bar over.
Yeah,
in,
no, I remember,
right?
man. I remember.
And you were there, and I kind of saw you, and I knew you were different. And then finally we sat down at the end, man. And we sat down next to each other outside, and, you know, Jason was exhausted from all what he had been doing, and you and I just started chatting. And I remember the sincerity with which you brought every facet of how you converse, right? I mean, most people see the great white buffalo. By the way, great white buffalo. Most people see you and you're this ominous figure. You're not ominous, but you're a large guy.
Yeah, I'm not small.
You're not small, man. You're not teeny, right? In any
petite.
You're not petite, bro. But yet the sincerity with which you deliver your thoughts and how calculated you are knocked me on my ass, bro. And I was like, my God, here's a person that I really have, just in that context alone, this deep respect. And then you couple that with the fact that your breadth of experience as a human being, your understanding of the human condition is profound. And for me, from that moment on into the, your incredible grace and your incredible, taking that risk on me working with Stefan and just our friendship and how it's cultivated, it's really become one of the most powerful things I have in my life.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Rut, it's at the end of the day, it's just truth, right?
Yes.
We're able to speak truth to one another. And, I tell my wife all the time, the toughest thing any human being can do is to be honest with themselves. And once you can be honest with yourself and you're comfortable with that process, you begin to recognize it in other people, and I think that's one of the things I appreciated about you was, your exploration of the human condition. And, through all the trials and tribulations of life, you've always come back to that. How am I honest with myself?
Amen.
Because once you do that, your capacity to love, to care for others, to have compassion, all of those things that make us human is greatly increased. But if you're not sincere and honest with yourself, then you can't do any of those other things.
At all.
And so I think that's one of the things that attracted us to one another in terms of, working together, initially professionally and then just becoming good friends. We obviously had a commonality in military service and a profound respect for the sacrifices that our brothers and sisters make. But that was just the springboard, Then it was, two dudes getting to know one another and really respecting what it was all about, And I think over the years, we've taught each other a tremendous amount. And it's the pendulum swung.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be. It goes back and forth day in and day out. And there's reciprocity in every relationship. And if they're not, then you shouldn't be in that relationship. You know, there should be an outpouring of giving without expectation, and there should also be the ability, you know, to receive. I think that's what people struggle with too sometimes.
Oh my God, yeah.
How do I just receive information? How do I receive love, right? You and I have talked about this idea of love a lot and how powerful it is, and how it you know, going back to truth, love is kind of one of the ultimate truths, right?
It is the ultimate
You know,
truth.
so if you can increase your capacity to do that and love genuinely, then you're just in a different plane, man. You know, and I think that's what has allowed us to have such a great friendship. And explore this thing together. You know, I mean, we deal with life day in and day out, but we genuinely, I think, go through this process together.
100%. And it is that collective sharing of life, right? That collective sharing of our joys through our children and family, through our successes professionally, but also through our pains as well. Yeah. I mean, how many rucks have we done on the beaches? Yeah. Man, I remember vividly in the midst of my divorce, and you literally, with every step I took in that sand, and the weight of the pack got deeper and heavier, the clarity of the love that you were giving me and the clarity of the advice you given me it made everything lighter.
Well, listen, I mean, what's our background, right? Pain therapy is ingrained in what we do and who we are. And that's a great part of who we are. You know, we've learned so many powerful lessons that way. But again, that's love, is to be part of one another's experiences and to go through it, man. I mean, you know, you've been there for me, you know, the up and downs business wise, and there's been, you know, profound highs and the ultimate lows, and just, you know, we've kind of worked through it together, man. And you know, I'm excited to continue to do that kind of stuff with you. And I always come back to you. I've viewed you as a mentor for, you know, since the very beginning. You know, I saw what you were doing with Stefan, and I loved it. I wish he would have been more receptive to it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because I think he missed out. But I always sat down and listened to every lesson you gave for him. And I was like, all right, well, I love him. If he's not going to take this lesson for himself, I'm at least taking it, because I want to grow and I want to learn. And you know, you were giving out great knowledge, man.
Yeah, it's funny that, and I want to just back up for just a second for everybody that's listening. You know, Lex has this incredible journey he's been on, and it's really profound. I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, your mom had you when she was 14, right? Yeah. And how you grew up with her and the struggles there, joining, you know, the football, you know, in LA County, and the opportunities that were presented to you, but the dramatic shift into the Marine Corps, your experience there, your experience in Somalia, losing your friends, and, you know, being adopted by Ed McMahon, and the growth, going to law school and getting your MBA at the same time at UCLA, working in
Pepperdine.
Pepperdine.
Let's get it right.
I apologize.
Down by the beach, buddy.
Down by the beach, which is remarkable in and of itself, because I wouldn't have been able to go to class whatsoever. and then taking this and developing it into where you're at now as essentially running Titan FC, which is one of the primary, you know, feeder systems to the UFC and in all of MMA. It's one of the most successful on Fight Pass. You know, you have this. You're in one of the greatest growth areas for MMA in all of the country and South.
One of the greatest growth areas in all of sports.
Yes.
You know, and that's what's, you know, coming from my background in venture capital, you know, amongst many other things, right? You know, but the venture capital lens is what I view my business opportunities through. And, you know, I transitioned from venture capital to MMA, and that's kind of a non sequitur, right?
Yeah.
But it made sense, because if you looked at how fast things were growing, when I came into this sport first as a someone doing endorsement deals and then a manager, you know, almost 12 years ago, man, there was literally bail bondsmen, strippers, moms, dads, girlfriends, boyfriends, some random dude down on the street that were acting as agent or as representatives for athletes. And, you know, to see how it's progressed, and, you know, to see now that, you know, the UFC was acquired for $4.2 billion off of a $2 million initial investment, you know, and now that company is valued at it, depending on where you look, it's valued at between $7 and $10 billion.
Wow.
Just a few years later.
Wow.
You know, and then you've got companies like Bellator that's owned by ONE FC or I'm sorry, Bellator that's owned by Viacom. Then you've got ONE FC over in Asia that has a significant Chinese investment behind it. You know, the sport continues to grow. And so to be associated with what I believe is the 800-pound gorilla, which is Dana White and the UFC, Ari Emanuel and IMG, listen, I wouldn't want to be anyplace else.
And what's amazing, too, and I want to get into this a little later on and when we talk about purpose, is the fact that you're out there, you know, you're bringing MMA to the world, essentially now. You've shifted this really remarkable pivot, which is I really want to get into from a business perspective later, but now, you know, you were in what? You were in Kazakhstan.
Last December.
You're going down to the Dominican Republic. There's an opportunity in Azerbaijan. I mean,
Paraguay. December. Yeah.
You literally are on the tip of the spear for, you know, bringing this beautiful art form, really, and it's essentially the earliest form of competition that humanity has ever known.
Well,
right?
even more than that, Rut, it's a cultural expression.
Yeah, man.
You know, I mean, if you think about it, every culture, every single culture has some form of martial art.
Wow.
Whether it's a very kind of, I don't want to say esoteric, but very center focused, you know, Tai Chi type, you know,
man.
That's non-aggressive, combative. Or, you know, you
depending on how you look at it, because it's combat with your stress. It's combat in your mind.
That's
right?
true. That's true. You know, to the traditional forms, you know, Muay Thai, the kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, all of those things. But every culture has something.
Yeah. So
when you go to a different place and throughout the world, like I go all over the world and I train everywhere I go,
That's
man.
so cool.
And one of the things I love about it again is it's a way to get to know the culture and the people of that area.
Yeah. Amen. It was funny that you bring that up. And, you know, when my first trip with, I didn't really get into it in the SEAL teams, but my first trip with Blackwater, I was with this really awesome guy, Joe, and we went through training together, and we're in Azerbaijan, and he's big, you know, I think he was a blue belt at the time or something like that. And he's like, get your stuff, we're going to train. And we literally like pulled our driver over at the National Center for Martial Arts.
Right.
He walks in and says, we want to train. Yeah, we're good. We train. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they make him go against like the young champion. He destroys him. They make him go against another he destroys him. And then like the third day they bring like the national champion, like
the real guys,
this beast,
yeah.
Right? And Choach was like, Rut, get in there. And literally the dude did like a suplex on me. I'm like, yep, he's good, man. And I watched them go at it, but it was, you know, from then on, I did a similar thing. Everywhere I'd go, you engage in this cultural dialogue of the body.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the great thing? Like you go to all these different places and you know, mixed martial arts is truly a global sport, right?
Yeah.
So you go all over the world and a lot of times you don't speak the language, right? So you have this language barrier that makes it very challenging. But guess what? You step onto the mats, you step into the ring, the cage, whatever it may be, and there becomes this commonality. And as you're working, right? You're putting in the work to train. The smiles come, you know, the various emotions, but you communicate through those emotions. And for somebody who can't speak, you know, listen, Kazakh is not an easy language at all to learn. I had more fun in Kazakhstan training with some of the fighters and coaches there because they were so genuine and their willingness to train with me. And, you know, they viewed me as, you know, here's a guy who's essentially like a representative of the UFC. So they were really excited for me to be there. But, man, I was just as excited to be training with them, you know? I mean, I train with young kids. I train with, you know, their head Muay Thai coach who, you know, had this very dour expression. This, you know, kind of looked like Genghis Khan, to be honest. and like I feared for my life every time I got in the cage with him.
Yeah.
But we had a blast, man. Yeah. And like, you know, again, he had that dour expression, and you think he wouldn't smile. And then all of a sudden he'd crack a smile, and he's like, good, you know? And it was awesome. And I think that's one of the beauties of mixed martial arts.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think it's a good place to pivot into, you know, what I imagine is the first thing that I think people really want to understand, because they talk when you express these stories, they're all really rooted in that positive intention to experience life. Right? You are not a person that anything I've ever seen does not immerse yourself into the experience, right? And you think critically about it, but yet you are spontaneous about the excitement of it, whether you're out on the hunting trips with a hero, or you're traveling, or you're just being a great dad on Sunday, pancake day, right?
Pancake
Sundays, right? And you're invested. And one of the things that I think a lot of people that I talk to all the time is we're kind of born with this fear, right? I mean, we're wired for fear.
Yeah. Fear it's a natural defense mechanism, right?
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about your first inclinations of fear and where you started learning how to manage that, or learning how to embrace it in a way where it was you were laying the groundwork for this spark of adventure that was going to be your life.
I mean, some of it's born out of necessity, right? Like we touched on it earlier. My mom was 14 when she had me. We essentially grew up together, right? And, the real story of my biological father is I don't even know the full story. We know that he was a drug dealer, and my mom had to run away from him. He's either in jail or dead. I frankly never cared to ask, to be honest. Like my mom told me multiple stories, and I said, what, man, it's not going to define who I am. All I know is this dude's not in my life. But she is, because, my mom and I talked about this recently. It could have been very easy for her to give me up at 14 years old by herself in the world with this baby, but she didn't. She fought. And I think going through her experiences taught me a lot about dealing with my own fears, right? As I grew up, I had a lot of insecurities because of the situation I was in. And I think fear is very common for an adolescent,
Absolutely.
And, you touched on it before. Here I am, my mom was, doing her best to give me the best opportunity. So she puts me in school in Beverly Hills. We were so poor. It was amazing how poor we were.
How poor were you?
Dirt was richer than we were. Like, we were broke. But she did everything she could to put me in an environment that would set me up for future success. And, but going through that experience, I was fortunate. I met some good friends through football. But, man, like, you see kids driving to school in Ferraris and Porsches, and, that's not real, first of all. But, from my perspective, I was like, holy cow. So, I had to figure out, especially at that age, who I was going to be as a person. And that took me kind of to the seminal moment, which was when I joined the military.
Yeah.
Because
but why didn't football define you? Why didn't football become the essence of your ability to escape or pronounce yourself in this higher manner? Because you got offers. I remember we talked about that.
So looking back at it retrospectively, I think because it's team oriented. And you have to go through your own crucible. You have to go through your own personal crucible to be able to come out the other end a bigger, better person, right?
Right.
You have to be broken down to kind of the bare minimum, and then you build yourself back up. And football, there was always my teammates and my coaches there to catch me.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of built into the system itself of sport, right?
It is.
Yeah. There's a nurturing. Even though maybe when we played back in the day, it was a little bit more harsh, right?
Right.
But there's still a sense of nurturing, especially if you perform.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. But for me, the military was because it was something that went against the grain of what my family wanted me to do.
Yeah.
It was something that I was venturing out on my own to do.
Was it an individual, a person, a moment, a place, a movie? What was the influence for you?
Honestly, it was... I knew I needed to get my life together. I didn't know how. I knew I needed a challenge, and I realized I probably needed the most significant challenge I could get my hands on.
Right.
To, because I was a bit rudderless, so in order to kind of find center and get grounded, I knew I needed a real challenge. And
you weren't wild though. I mean, you
no,
weren't out of your.
I was out of my gourd, right?
Really, like full tilt.
Wouldn't come home for weeks at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, I was totally out of control. The only thing that kept me in somewhat of check was football and my friends.
Right.
You know, I knew there was a minimum threshold I had to maintain.
A loyalty to them.
Yeah.
Was that driven out of not wanting to be alone and the fear of that, or that to be a part of something because you were
probably? Because I mean, I really was a loner in a lot of respects. Otherwise, you know. But when I went to the, you know, it was just the Gulf War was starting, and I was like, you know what, this is that moment. There's this generational moment that's going to occur. This is, you know, the perfect thing for me because I know I need this challenge. And, you know, I mean, listen, had I walked in front of a Navy SEAL recruiter, I would have been a SEAL. I walked in front of a Marine recruiter, and guess what? He looked really good in his dress blues.
Dude, there's no doubt in my mind.
And he did the best thing possible. I said, listen, I'm going to be the easiest sell you're ever going to have. Sign me up. I said, give me the test. I guarantee you I'm going to do well on it. He goes, okay. So
did you have an aptitude for academics at all in that time, or
I've always been, you know, smart, but I was always lazy.
Yeah.
But I was smart.
Me too.
You know, and so I went in and I scored almost a perfect score on the ASVAB.
That's
you
awesome.
know, and so I told the recruiter, I said, listen, this is the easiest job you're ever going to have, man. I'm ready to go today. If you can get me on the bus, I'll go. I want to be in infantry. It's all you got to do, man. And he said, I don't know if you're cut out to be a Marine.
Whoa.
And that challenged me. And
right
he had me hook, line, and sinker. I was already set in my mind that I was going to be a Marine. But if he hadn't have done that, and because ultimately what happened is I had to spend time in the delayed entry program.
Right.
And it was months. And during the months, you know.
You're on probation, essentially.
Right? And you know, I just wanted to go. I was ready for the next phase of my life. So I would have gone to the Army. I would have gone somewhere else. But as soon as he said, you don't have what it takes, I said, brother, you have no idea. He knew. He knew.
Well,
he
was baiting you for
he was.
all that.
And hook, line, and sinker, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
But really, that was when, you know, I got in. I realized, okay, this is for real now. Once I finally made it to boot camp, and I finally, you know, got in and started doing that.
Let's back up. But you know, it's one thing to go in and sign up, right? Because you have these idealistic views of this transformation that's gonna
It's
happen.
romantic.
Yeah, right.
It's very romantic.
Totally, man. And there's enough influence at that time for us in terms of what we watch on movies,
Sure.
or it's profound, right? And you're a kid in the late 80s.
Listen, the girls play Barbies.
Yeah.
The boys play military.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's just kind of how at least it's how I grew up.
Me too.
You know?
100%. But once you sign up and that MEPS day comes and that bus ride and then you show up, man, did you hit a new point of evaluating your fear at all at that moment?
No, I just put my head down and just figured, I said, listen, I'm going to get through this no matter what. So there was no fear through all of boot camp.
Is that a result of just having to grind as a kid always?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Like it couldn't have been harder than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, couldn't have until I got to Somalia. And that's honestly, so getting back to your question about fear, that's where I really had to learn to manage fear.
Okay.
You know,
do you remember
I did 2 tours, right?
Yep.
You did like 95.
No,
right?
not even.
But I mean, you get my point. Like the kids that are going through have been dealing with the global war on terror.
It's a whole nother, it's a phenomenon.
It's insane. Like I thought, at the time, 2 tours was a lot.
It's a truckload back then.
It really was, because we had the Gulf War, but that went quick. Before it was Panama and Grenada. Like, okay, we invaded the Caribbean island. So I mean,
sorry, gents.
Yeah. So to go to Equatorial Africa, a place that's been in conflict since the colonials. I mean, really, way before then.
Way before that.
The cradle of
the
mankind.
Zulu Wars, everything.
But to go to that place, and their concept of fighting is so base, and so, you want to talk about having no fear. The Somali Klansmen, 0 fear.
0.
Even the Somali civilians. What happens typically when gunfire erupts, right? People go the opposite way.
Yeah, they run from it.
The Somalis, women, children, elders and obviously the Klansmen would run towards it.
Wow.
And the Klansmen would use the children and women and old people as human shields, and they'd pop their AK underneath their arm, and here you are, 19 years old, and you've got a machine gun, and you're like, oh shit, what do I do? You know, and then you begin to evaluate what's important to you, and that's just the guy on the right or the left, and getting home and all that. But
man, it's so funny that I don't mean to cut you off, but you brought that up, and I remember the first vivid description of combat I ever got to experience from a peer, not from an older guy I'd been around or whatever, was from John Waddell, who was in Black Hawk Down. Yeah. And we went through 18 Delta. He went on to Delta and was there forever. I mean, really brilliant operator. He was valedictorian of his class, and then said, "Nope." He had a full ride to MIT, and he said, "Nope, I want to go to combat. I want to be a Ranger. I want to go to combat." Joined 6 months. He's through Ranger school in RIP. A year later, he's in Somalia for Black Hawk Down, and he tells this story. He told us this story when one goat day we were doing, and this on this corner, a couple guys kept popping out while they were in that one spot, and he wasted one guy, and then the next guy, and next thing you know, a woman pops out with he kills the woman, kills another woman, and then a kid pops out and he kills the kid and another kid, and it just went on like that all night. And he said that was the moment where he began to realize that the power of fear, if harnessed in the right way, can have us do things we never dreamed fathomable.
100%.
And it's in direct correlation to how other people's fear, right? The other culture. And so here you are as this young man in Somalia, 19 years old, coming from the way you grew up, and now all of a sudden you're recognizing that these people don't have the same value of life you do. Yeah. That must have been...
It was heavy, man. Yeah. You know, I mean, I remember we went through... K4 Circle in Mogadishu, and that's as you're coming from the airport and you go past the Olympic Hotel and you kind of come around the circle, and all of a sudden you're in the Bakara market. Oh, yeah. Okay, and that's Black Hawk Down. That's where all that went down. And I remember, you know, the Somalis would light tires, and the black smoke billows up. That's a signal to have all the other Klansmen, but they also would use that as kind of a foundation for roadblocks.
Right.
And they'd put a bunch of, you know, trash and debris in the road, but they'd have, you know, this huge smoldering fire going. And so I remember coming through the K4 Circle, and we, you know, it's one of our first, we were going from one base to another base, from the airport to, I think like one of the water treatment facilities. And we get to going around K4 Circle, and there it's blocked off, and there's this fire. And I'm a 60 gunner, and we had back at that time, you know, the soft skin Humvees.
Yeah. Oh, just troop carriers.
You know, and so open air, and I had my 60 resting on the roof of the Hummer, and one of the guys with me was, you know, sitting next to me, and as we get stuck, there's this crowd of, you know, kids, and one of them throws a grenade into the back of our vehicle. By the time I turned my 60 to shoot, my buddy had shot him in the forehead.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, this is what's going through my mind. I remember thinking, holy cow, I've got a sister that's about the same age. And that blew me away.
Just that correlation.
Just that one thing.
Wow.
And that's when I began to understand. And thank God that the grenade was inert. You know, I mean, like half the weapons there didn't even have, like the rifles didn't even have firing pins.
Right.
You know, I mean, so
thank God.
Thank God we were fortunate in that situation. But I learned such an amazing and powerful lesson at that moment. And that's when I really began to harness my own fear and said, okay, if we're going to make it out of this, man, like we've just got to function.
Right.
You know, but thinking, I mean, that's when I learned that their view was so different than ours, you know, and what you do with that knowledge is what defines whether or not you get home or not.
Amen to that, for sure. What's interesting is that, you know, a correlation to what you love most, right? Your sister, and the recognition, my God, that child just wanted to kill me. Mm-hmm. That child wanted me to be dead, and intended for it to happen. The child didn't know it was action. Threw that shit out, and it was like, man, I'm gonna blow these guys up. They're in my land. I'm gonna blow them up. And now all of a sudden, you're rooted with that memory as a pivot point for your life. Yeah. And so I always find it fascinating, especially, I mean, you know, a lot of it has to do with being veterans and our sharing of our stories together. But when you really try and drill down with other people, you begin to see there's this correlation to those really scary moments, those moments
we
where,
all have our moments.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, again, it's kind of what you do with that moment. Do you learn from it? Do you grow from it? Or do you let it define you? Right? Where, like, I could have easily, you know, not become the person I have become when my mom had me at 14 and drugs were a major part of, I mean, my mom was a drug addict. Like, you know, it was just, it could have set the tone for who I was.
Forever.
And somehow I found a way to work through that and not let it define me. And I think that's, you know, we all come to those pivotal moments, and it really is kind of that moment in time where you either make it or you don't, man. And you can certainly go back and you know, fix things over time. But you're when you're confronted with that moment, you just know, hey, I got to do something. And I think, again, that goes back to fear, right? Like, if you allow fear to dictate what happens, it shuts you down, right?
Literally.
But if you acknowledge
physiologically, mentally, cognitively, literally can shut you down. You go OBE, overcome by events.
Yeah.
How often have you seen it, whether it's fighters, whatever, they're so afraid that they can't function, they can't think straight, or in circumstances where it might be a confrontation on the street, or where you literally watch people
just shut down.
They shut down.
Yeah.
It's a pretty remarkable thing.
Yeah. But the inverse of that is when you acknowledge your fear, right? You acknowledge it and you harness it. Because, again, going back to how powerful, man, if you can take one of the most profound human emotions there is and channel that to help you move in a direction,
yeah,
man, you're almost unstoppable. You know, the people don't want to admit fear, so you have to get past the societal construct that fear is bad.
Now you're talking,
you
baby.
know, because otherwise, I mean, because again, my wife and I had these conversations about whether or not to get married before we had our kid or after we. And I said, baby, it doesn't matter. We're gonna get married. The idea of marriage beforehand, that's a societal construct. It really is in every way. So this understanding and acceptance of fear is kind of the same thing. You know, society says fear is bad. No, man, it's just because you haven't really experienced fear yet.
Yeah.
If you've done it, then and gone through it and said, okay, wow, that was heavy. What am I going to do with it? You've had that moment, that epiphany where you say, I can really do something with this.
Yes.
Then you're I don't want to say winning, but you are. You're coming out so far ahead because you've taken this really elemental emotion and said, I'm going to make it mine, and I'm going to empower it, you know, or use it to empower me.
It's funny that you talk about making it. You're giving it an identity, right? And you're not hyper compartmentalizing it. Like, our brains do it naturally, right? Through trauma, it shoves it into these deep recesses of our minds in order to protect us from, you know, the trauma of it, living with it day in and day out all day long. But there's also another thing that I found, and, you know, I've been digging in, not only experiencing fear for the better part of my entire adult life, but researching it now. You see, man, and I go out when I teach, you know, I give my speeches on embracing fear. I ask one of the main questions, who in the audience has ever written down every fear you've ever had, right? From when you were a child, whether you're afraid of the dark or the boogeyman or whatever, adolescence, feeling rejected, asking girls out, you know, young adulthood, fear of failure, fear of letting your parents down, whatever, not living up to some expectation. And then as an adult, it's, man, am I a good person? Am I a good father, a good husband?
But where does that go back to? Think about it. What we were talking about earlier, it goes back to the most challenging thing a human can do is to be honest with themselves.
Amen.
So to go through that exercise, which, to be honest, I've never done. I've thought a lot about fear. I've acknowledged fear. I've embraced fear. But I've never sat down and said, all right, Lex, no bullshit.
What are you afraid of?
What scares you? What is it?
Yeah.
I've never done that. And I'm actually going to, now that I think about it, because I think it's such an important, you know, lesson to be able to come to grips with what your fears are. Because if you now you're being honest with yourself, right?
Well,
know?
you sit there and you go boom, 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 boom. You type those keys, or you write it down in your journal, and you see it. It's real now, like you said.
You've given life to it.
You've given life. You're honest with it, man. You know, and it's funny when I one time did it in a crowd of 1,000 people, and I had 2 people raise their hands. Right. One person did it as a college, you know, when they're college and a professor, their, you know, Psych 1 course had them do it. The other one been in therapy, and so their therapist had made them do it. But most people, when I ask this in the audiences, and I'll give my Brace for Your speech probably, you know, 20 times a year, and they don't. Nobody's done it, but yet it's the most critical aspect of what we need to, you know, that the momentum forward in our lives, right? The question I got for you now, though, is you have this pivotal moment. You're this 19-year-old kid, and you go overseas. You see it. You're touching it, you know, and it's almost, you know, you think about it, right? Is death the real consequence you have to learn how to deal with your fears? I don't believe it is. Right. I think it's the ultimate. You're getting shot out of that cannon, but at the same time, it's not a necessity. We can do it in any other way, a lot of other ways. So you experience this moment, and you come home after. Let's go your second one, and at that moment, when do you make the decision? You're like, all right, now I've got the understanding of my fear. How do I then take this and launch to the next level of my life?
You know, I don't know that there was a conscious moment, Rut, to be honest.
Really?
You know, I think that I was so happy to be home and alive.
Yeah, man.
That I just started living, and I lived life to the fullest. And, you know, talking about my sense of adventure, I think that really, that's where my sense of adventure, you know, the military sent me to, I think, 17 countries.
Oh, wow.
Which, you know, for a young kid, that's pretty darn good. I've been to 106 now. So I took that seed that the military planted. And I've run with it, man.
It's beautiful.
And I think that that's how, like, I just never sat down and said, okay, what's next? I just said, bring it. There's nothing I won't try. There's truly not. I will eat anything. I will.
I made comments about my goat gut. I've never seen anything like yours. You are on next level goat gut.
I think, again, you
why?
know, back to
why though? Why is the adventure?
Because it all could have been gone
in a second.
And I could have never had those experiences. And now having children, that's the big lesson I teach them: is the world's such a big, beautiful, amazing place. Yes, it's fraught with dangers and all of that, but guess what? If you don't go out and experience it, you're going to live this very sheltered, myopic life.
Yeah.
And you won't know who you really are and how you fit into the bigger picture of this world and everything that, you know, goes on in it until you get out there. Right. You know, so every time I travel, I bring home currency. I bring home pictures of the people.
Yeah.
If I can, I bring home food. Anything that will allow
the culture,
my kids.
the touch, the taste. And, you know, I think for me, where I really saw, because a lot of people we know travel a lot, right? They go all over. But for me, it was when you were in, when you were in Kazakhstan, right?
Yep.
And you played that game, and you got on the horseback. Cookpar.
Yeah.
And I told you this beautiful story about when I was with Blackwater. We took these guys out. We were in a helo, and we're coming back over the hills near Bagram, and right outside, and we're flying over, and I say, whoa, 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 and I get on the mic, and I say, hey, go fly over there. And they were playing this game. And it, you know,
Buzkashi,
right?
Yeah, that's the Afghan version.
And I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I want to play. That's one of my bucket list things. Then all of a sudden, my best friend Lex, I see overseas, and he's playing this damn game, and I'm like, that's living.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, it was great because we were there with the fighters, you know, and there was quite a few Kazakh fighters that we were highlighting and showcase. But we were also there with one of my very dear friends for many, many years, who's also my coach, which is JZ Calvin Conte. He was, you know, an incredibly high-level fighter in his early 20s, actually. Mm-hmm. And he's, you know, he was huge in Japan, but he was born on the same day. I don't even know if you realize it. He was born the same day I was. And he and I are really very similar people.
Really?
So I brought him to Kazakhstan to help coach the Kazakhs, to get them ready for the big tournament we had. And we went to go play Kokbar, and it was all for filming and the show. But there was no, okay, this is how you play. These are the rules. Here's how you – have you ever ridden a horse? Here's a safety – here are the reins. And in guttural Kazakh English translation, go into hole. Don't get hit. And that's really the explanation we got. And Jay-Z
Don't get hit.
Jay-Z and I just said, you know what, man, we're in. And I mean,
Great
he was better than I was, man. You could see what an athlete and what a warrior he really is. But man, we just said, let's go. Let's make it happen, man. And it was so fun. It was awesome.
You know, and it's, man, and so that's the next place that I want to move into is that self-confidence, right? Because that's what that is.
Yeah.
It's to, not only just because of the experiences you've had and where you've gone and what you've seen and the ability to embrace fear like you are. Now it's like, oh, man, I want to intensify who I am as a person, right? I want to have self-confidence day in and day out. And so all of these experiences are feeding me this thing. Have you ever thought of yourself as a person that struggled with self-confidence?
I honestly think if someone says that they haven't, they're full of shit.
Yeah.
We all do. It's part of the human condition, right? I just go back to, I mean, there's days I think, wow, I don't know how I'm going to make it through this day. And I go back to a phrase that I think I learned it in the military. I can't remember 100% exactly when, but I remember being confronted with a real challenge. And it seemed daunting, like climbing Everest, right?
Right.
Like just so out of reach of what I thought I was capable of personally. And I was told, look, how do you eat an elephant? I'm thinking, I don't know. How the hell do you eat an elephant? I mean, it's like an animal that's multiple tons. How do you eat an elephant?
Flamethrower.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And where do you start?
It just became, to me, so that's how I have navigated really challenging circumstances. And I know it's how you got through your Bud's experience and then subsequently your military time, because I think it's a universal lesson.
Yes.
But that's how I really get through the challenges that I have day to day, where I lack the confidence and I think, man, I don't know if I'm going to pull this off. I say, you know what? If I can just accomplish this one small little win, this one little victory, in the aggregate, before you know it, you're on the top of the mountain, man.
Yeah.
You've climbed Everest and you didn't even realize you were walking.
Right.
You were just taking one tiny little step at a time, thinking, okay, I'm just moving from point A into point B. Well, by the time you are done walking, you're on the top of the world, 28,000 feet.
Wow.
And I think that having that experience of struggling with confidence is just, it's just part of who we are, man. And again, I go back to, it's the one thing like I'm so consistent on is trying to be honest with myself, right? And I know, and I struggle with it to be honest. I struggle with being honest with myself, and I have to hold myself accountable to say, okay, ask yourself the tough questions. Be introspective. Strip away everything that society says you should be doing and just sit back and say, what feels right? What feels good? What feels bad? What feels wrong? And go through that exercise. And once I do that, my self-confidence issues go away.
Where'd you learn the exercise, though? Because obviously you don't grow up in Beverly Hills and in the way you did, go into the Marine Corps, and then all of a sudden, next thing you're thinking in deep philosophical thoughts or tranches of identity, and saying these are the things that I root myself in when my self-confidence is taking a beating.
Yeah. I would love to say that, I just have it. But the reality is I have to lean on, I think I'm part of all the men and women that have been a part of my life.
Yeah, man.
And I've taken elements from each one of those people that were really significant. Like, one of my buddies, Ernest, I remember he was on the football team with me, and he kind of took me in. and my mom and her boyfriend got into a fight, and which led me to get in a fight with her boyfriend. And I couldn't go home for like weeks because they lived together, you know? And so I remember I just left the house in a pair of shorts, no shirt, no shoes, walked 3 miles to my buddy's house, knocked on the door, and he took me in, and his mom's like, "What are we doing?" And he just looked at her and he said, "We're going to take care of him." And
Wow.
you know, so Ernest has been this guy. He took me in. He was so much smarter than I was, because again, I was lazy, and so I didn't push myself. He pushed himself, right? So he helped to push me. He taught me, you know, a lot of things about, you know, the use of language. And, you know, so that was one guy. You know, you've certainly been, since we got to know one another, you've had a profound impact on how I evaluate and look at things, right? My wife, my kids. I think my kids are probably the biggest one, man.
It's massive.
Because you look at it and go, wow, am I being a good enough person, a good enough father, a good enough role model, so that they can grow up better than I did? Not that, listen, my mom busted her ass, but it wasn't ideal, you know? So that's part of my process. And so how I've come to a place where I'm comfortable in my own skin is by taking bits and pieces of all the people that are around me, and always being willing to say, what did I learn from that person?
Yeah.
You know?
It's a gift, you know. I mean, what you have is really special. I mean, I know a lot of friggin' people out there. I've met a lot of human beings, as you, I'm sure, have as well. But what you possess is a gift, Lex. It really is. People don't have the capacity normally to live with that self-introspection, but rooted in this sense of servitude.
Yeah.
I mean, you wake up every day and you serve. Right, you serve as a husband. You serve, probably one of the best fathers I know by far.
Thanks, bro.
You serve, you know, you serve these organizations. Literally, you will give everything that you are and that you have in every way to other people. That's something different than what we're talking about. That's a deeper thing.
Yeah,
man.
but if you think about it, bro, I mean, so it's all about the definition of success.
Right.
Me, right?
Yep.
I was in an environment at one point in my life where I got to mingle and be around the elite and some of the literally the wealthiest people in the world. I saw my dad, who was extraordinarily wealthy, made a lot of money over the years in entertainment. You know, my adopted father, and Dad broke.
The context of the question is here. You have this innate gift inside you.
Definition of success.
Definite, which leads to this greater idea of how you evaluate success. Is it rooted in the materialism that you witnessed with Ed McMahon and all these amazing human beings in Hollywood and the heavyweight titans of the world? Or is it rooted in the 19-year-old Marine that you just saw kill some kid? Yeah. Is it rooted in the life of growing up with the trouble, you know, your mom and her struggles? Or is it rooted in, you know, you're becoming a lawyer with an MBA? You know what I mean? These are a lot of different influences that... But yet, I somehow have always felt this genuine definition. And where do you think that came from?
I mean, I think I've always had it. But it continued to grow, and you know, it took root, I think, over time. But, you know, 10 and a half years ago, when Addison, my first daughter, was born, that's when my definition of success changed entirely. And I've been such a better person because of it. You know, that's what really kind of sparked the idea of, well, what we're talking about is a definition of success, right? I could have a ton of money, and I've had it, I've lost it, I've made it back again, I've lost it again, made it back again, you know, I mean, so I've had a ton of success.
Yeah.
I've been a C-class officer in, you know, multiple companies. You know, I'm self-made, got this amazing education. Those are great ways to measure success, for sure. But guess what? The degrees are wallpaper. All the money you make, you don't take it with you. I know it's cliche, but you truly don't.
Not a dime.
You know. So what's going to be left? How will I be defined as a success by my children. And what I've come
By
to
your team, your tribe.
is what, if my kids look at me and say, my dad made this world a better place. He taught me lessons because he genuinely cared and wanted me to grow. He gave me the opportunities and sacrificed some of the things that he and mom would like to do so that we could have better opportunities. If my kids, when I'm no longer here and they're giving my eulogy, if my kids say those type of things about me, then my life will have been worthwhile. It will have been of meaning. And I talk to, every time I do these philanthropic endeavors, and it's part of the fabric of who I am.
You
right?
have to do it, brother.
I spend just as much or more time
I know.
than I do working.
Helping other people.
And actually, sadly, in some degree, more time than I do spending time with my family.
Yeah.
But my family understands why I do it. They understand that it's my effort to make the world a better place and show my children. Like, my wife gets it, man. Like, she definitely gets it. She understands that everything that I do is about my children and teaching them. So she gives me the latitude to do it, and she's allowed me to define what is going to be my work, what's going to be my definition of success. It impacts her for sure, but she's cool. She's like, okay, I don't.
Well, it's funny, we talk a lot about this as we talk about that team that's around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have certain teams for certain things, but the essence of that real team, that true team life, and how they understand us, right? And what the latitude they give us with that growth, but yet also how they push us as well too.
Yeah.
And
accountability.
And so when obviously you get to see literally hundreds of teams, right? All these young kids coming into the fight world and their teams that support them in this conquest of this championship or money or whatever it might be. So you've been around that. You understand the teams of the military, right? How do you define team at the highest level?
I would say it's the most elementary level, and that's the family, right? Like, I go through our personal experiences, both you and I, just use that as a point of reference.
Right.
Both of our lives and our definition of team have changed over the years, from athletic to military, for me back into the martial arts. But the ultimate measure of team or definition of team to me is family, because guess what? When everything is great, they're there. But more importantly, when everything's bad, which we've both gone through, everybody goes through, there's not one person that's listening that hasn't had their own difficult time, right?
Pain.
And how they get through it is, do they have that team, their family, to take care? And I think I'm so hypersensitive to the value of family.
Because of how you grew up?
Because I grew up in such a dysfunctional family.
Right.
And I love my mom, but, she could have given me, we talk about this all the time, like, she could have given me up, and she didn't. She fought for me. And it was so hard for her. She struggled with addiction. She still does, in her early 60s, still does. But she never quit because I was her team, And
she loved you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And so, as much as I appreciated that, and it means to me so much, I look at it and say, okay, what could be better about that? How could I create?
How do I refine this?
How do I? And so the idea of nuclear family is just so incredibly important to me. But it's not just the wife and daughters.
No.
I extend it out to, friends of the family you choose.
Right.
Right. And some friends come and go in your life, and that is what it is. They're part of your family. They're part of that ultimate team.
Yeah.
And, the ones that are really meaningful are there through every trial and tribulation. Just like when you were going through your tough times, I was just, hey, man, you good?
Always.
You good? And vice versa. That's the team. That's making it through it. So, the familial unit, however you define it, and again, my definition is my immediate family, but also, the friends of the family that I choose. That's the most powerful part of team to me.
Right. It's funny, man. You you, as a child, whatever team you come from, you know, it leaves a profound impression. And then we have this great opportunity to be a part of these teams in the military where, you know, the glue that holds you together is the probability of your own death, right?
Right.
So that transcends a lot of this other stuff. It transcends race. It transcends socioeconomic background, regional background, culture.
We're all the same.
It does not matter, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And I think, you know, now for me, and Jonna said this, my fiance said this just the other day, she goes, you know, listen, for much of your life, you've been on this grand journey, really trying to understand the human condition, right? Really exploring, right? But now, man, you know, are you able to root yourself in the essence of that true team, right? And that you're no longer on this journey for me, you know, traveling wherever and doing all this cool stuff, but it's like, man, I'm doing things now to make me a better teammate, not to go search for new teammates that might, you know, that can benefit me in whatever purpose or drive I have. But man, how am I going to make myself the best possible teammate? Which at the head of
4 girls,
right?
Now,
yeah,
and
man,
a husband,
that
or
changes.
soon to be, you
yeah,
know,
that changes things for sure.
No, again, I mean that was the thing that changed my entire definition and perspective about success. Was that family idea, that family concept, you know?
Did it intensify when your youngest came along as well? Did it grow? Did it get deeper?
It definitely got deeper, you know, but there was also this, you know, a little bit off topic, but I think somewhat related in that, you know, as a first-time dad, my older daughter, Addison, and I were so incredibly close. You know, we just had this bond. And then Kylie came along, and I had to learn to be close to her. So for some reason, I just didn't have this connection. And I loved her. I mean, she's my daughter. You know, she's gorgeous. She's sweet. She's got this amazing laugh. But I couldn't connect with her. And it took my wife showing me kind of, hey, this is your child. Like, you know, and like I got it, but I didn't. Yeah. Like I truly did. Like, and I think it's not uncommon. I think that some parents deal with that. You know, she was super close with her mom. Mm-hmm. I was super close with our other daughter. But I think that separation was really instructional for me because
how so?
Because it forced me again. Like I always try to be going back to that hardest thing someone can do is be honest with himself. When my wife pointed it out, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Then I went and sat quietly somewhere, and I was like, all right, Lex, what's going on? Why aren't you as close with your other daughter, whom you love with all your heart? Why aren't you as close with her? And why do you not accept this amazing girl? Because she's this incredible, vivacious, just so funny, like the sweetest kid. The sweetest kid. And frankly, my oldest daughter is kind of a pain in the ass. But I love her to death. And I'm so close to her. You know? But so with Kylie, when I sat down and I said, why am I not? The next question was, well, how do I become? Because I cared and I wanted to be. And so it became very instructional for me in that I had to teach myself and find ways to access her and to have that connection and that bond between us really develop more. And, you know, she's taught me a tremendous amount, man, to be honest. You know, she's probably taught me more than either my wife or my older daughter because it wasn't easy. We had to work at that relationship. You know, she fed off of the fact that I probably wasn't connecting to her. Yeah. So there was this chasm. And how do you bridge that gap, right? And it was just by really consistent
especially
work.
With a child. Yeah. Right? Because everything's so palpable in the surface. Sure. There's no hidden agenda. There's no contemplate. There's no judgment.
And there's the ultimate truth with children.
Immediate
They
truth.
speak truth, period.
Pure truth, man.
And so I had to learn how to connect with her so that she would see that I really loved her and cared about her. And I had to teach myself how to do that. And I did it by sitting back and just watching her. To be honest.
Wow, that's amazing, man. You know? All right, we're going to take just a quick real break right now. I just want to talk about our sponsors for the Froglogic podcast. Again, man, I feel so blessed and honored, you know, to have developed. Actually, what's kind of ironic is that my relationship with Aubrey Marcus and Onnit stems from this man sitting across from me right now. He's the one who gave me the monkey kettlebells. He's the one who forwarded my photos onto Andy, and thank God for you, Lex, and helping me with that, because without you, I certainly wouldn't have the opportunity to partner with Onnit and many of their great products, but most specifically Alpha Brain. If you're struggling every day, maybe you're just fatigued, you got too much stress in your life, you're not sleeping well enough, and you are just struggling to stay, synapses aren't really firing online, man, there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a truckload of pharmaceuticals that are out on the market. I've had a lot of friends try and go that route. I've never heard a lot of great, wonderful, positive things about that. And, as a person that really tries to maintain a holistic approach in my life, mostly out of fear of what could happen otherwise, Alpha Brain has been this great product for me. I have a lot of fear in my life about traumatic brain injury, about concussions from the past. And so I really, I value my brain, right?
Yeah, it's a muscle in many respects. You got to nourish it. You got to take care of it, right?
Legitimately. And we don't do that so often. It's one of the last things we actually try and take care of the most, right? We'll take everything to build muscle. We'll take everything to lose weight. We'll take everything to whatever. But, the stuff that really makes our brains healthy and vibrant and focused, and that alacrity that comes with really clear thinking, which we all need every day, especially when you're contemplating life and you're on this wonderful journey. So, I can't recommend enough Alpha Brain for people out there. Every morning I wake up, first thing I do, I walk into the bathroom, I go pee, or for my fourth time of the night, because I'm an old man now. But I bend over, I get out my gummy CDB, and then I have an Alpha Brain with that, and it just really gives me this opportunity to just start off with a crisp mindset. And with as much as I work, I work like you 7 days a week.
Like a dog. It's all we do, man.
We're just a bunch of carnies selling our wares. And so Alpha Brain has been this wonderful product. I highly recommend it. Go out there. Just don't take my word. There's a lot of people out there that are supporting Aubrey and supporting this product. It's their anchor product in all of their lines. They've spent the most time medically researching it, putting the right products together. All the products are squared away. I've sat for a long periods of time discussing why Aubrey really focused on this and what it really meant to him and to Onnit as a company, but also for the people that he was trying to help optimize their life. So go to onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com. Go check it out. Look out Alpha Brain. Tell them I sent you, Froglogic, and go check it out.
But here's the thing, real quick, because I want to piggyback, because like you said, Carney's selling our wares.
Yeah.
The great thing about Onnit and Alpha Brain is the people who are associated with it, right? The Joe Rogans, the Brendans, the Brian Callens, myself, like people that have really been around this product, and it's part of our business relationship. We all came to it as fans before there was a business relationship.
Way before.
I'm a huge believer, man. It gives me focus. Like, I love that aspect of it. Joe Rogan has talked ad nauseum about how incredible it is. And it's not just that, again, like, transparent, like, they sponsor his podcast for sure, right? And Brendan, the same thing. But again, he was their biggest advocate. They came to him and said, wow, you really like it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get you involved. He loves it, man. And I love it too. And my wife takes it, like, it's a killer product, man. And it's one that, like, wholeheartedly stand behind. It's like an easy one. You sit back and you go, oh shit, really I'm clear-headed right now. The bomb didn't win today.
Well, especially, in your life where you have, in our lives nowadays, you have 50 different things going on, right? I mean, as entrepreneurs or vetrepreneurs or whatever, man, we're juggling so many different aspects of these businesses that we're involved in.
And your family life. And this and that,
And so when you start to have that neurological fatigue, man, you miss things. You drop the ball on things. You're not giving your very best to the people that are depending on you. And I agree with you. Thank you for contributing to that. So there you have it. The other sponsor we have is Wise Foods. I've yet to given a bunch to Lex here, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to give him a bucket.
The Great White Buffalo needs to eat. I need to be wise with my food.
So, all you got to do, there's a lot of prepper foods out there, companies. There's a lot of groups that sell these, long-lasting food. But I'm telling you, man, as a person that's literally been preparing for the worst possible scenarios for the entirety of my adult life.
The zombie apocalypse?
It's literally coming. You know it. You know it's coming.
I'm prepared. I just need some Wise food in the back of the car.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen your guns. You're kind of there. You definitely don't have enough ammo, though.
I've added to the collection.
Okay. So
I've got some new toys.
You have new toys.
I just need Wise food now.
All right. So that's what we're going to do. So listen, I'm telling you what, there's a lot of things that I love the most about it. And it's not the guaranteed return on money if you don't like it in 90 days. It's not the fact that it tastes great. I've been to the facility. I've met the chefs. I understand how they put together their meals. It's not the way they process the freeze-dried the food. It's not the 25-year shelf life. All of these things. It literally is, for me, it's the peace of mind, man. It's the peace of mind that I know if we get hit with a Category 5 hurricane, there are no lines of transportation. The Publixes can't get resupplied. There's no fuel in South Florida. There's no nothing. At the minimum, man, I am going to have enough guns and ammo, enough water, and enough quality food providing
to sustain the family.
To sustain my 5 other members of my family. And my oldest, the Swan, right now, 11 years old, we call her the machine because she's literally going through about 3,000 calories a day right now, that we can sustain ourselves. And this is a company that stands behind its product. They're making huge headway. Their growth trajectory over the last 6 months is astronomical. They've grown in the last 3 months like by 40% because it's the quality of food that you're getting, the quality of product. So I'm telling you.
So let's talk about the quality of the food.
Let's do it. Because how many?
Give me some menu items.
How many?
When we were in the military, we had 12 MREs.
All right.
Back in the day.
Remember those?
So
remember how rank they
horrible,
were, dude?
Horrible.
Even with the Ranger cookbook, you could not make a decent meal.
You could not. So talk to me about some of the stuff that Wise has got, because now I'm hooked. Like I'm going home. I'm doing some due diligence, man.
Well, here's the deal. So all the traditional meals, right? The chili mac, the pasta Alfredo, the chickens. They've taken all those staples, right? And they've reworked them, remastered them, so the quality of the meat that's in there is profound. It's solid, good. It's not a meat byproduct or anything. It's real meat in there, right? They've got the noodles are cooked, the process with the cook time, the packaging, especially in their outdoor camping stuff. They have outdoor camping meals that knock the snot out of the other biggest competitor out there, and they're the number 2 people.
Best meal. Wise Foods, best meal. Tell me, which one is it?
Oh, man. That's tough. I'm going to go with the pasta Alfredo right now.
I could love some pasta Alfredo.
God.
What I would do to pasta Alfredo right now.
You would destroy that. All right, next interview, we're going to have Wise Food together here. All right,
sold.
All right, so check out wisefoodcompany.com. They've got everything from preppers meals, the buckets that you can get. You can make a purchase that lasts you 3 years for the ultimate zombie apocalypse, right?
It's coming.
Yeah. Literally coming soon, right, to a theater near you. Look at all the power grids going down in New York. You think that was just, we just overdid something? Nah, not so much, right? You can take it down the
It was a probing attack. That's what it was.
Exactly, probing attack. Look at Citibank just got hacked, man. It's out there. It's coming, man. So they've got the prepper meals that you can spend spend the big money on. They've got a 3-day. They've got a 1 month. They've got these great emergency backpacks that you can go down to Costco, right, or Sam's Club Just look for the pallet out there. Got my face right next to it, right?
Really? They couldn't have come up with a
Dude,
prettier looking dude than Jesus?
I
Look at you. You're like Jesus now. I love you, bro.
I'm the Navy SEAL Jesus, right? So literally,
Poet warrior.
the funny thing, I sent that to him. I sent the photos, and I said, "Are you sure?"
Let's talk about this.
And they went with it, man. God bless them. They went with it. All right. So, get out there, go check it out, man. And I promise you won't be let down. And most importantly, you're going to have that peace of mind for your family. You're going to be prepared for the next hurricane, the next wildfire, the next flood, the next tornado, the next earthquake, or God forbid, the next EMP or World War III or the zombie apocalypse, right? Check
and
out.
by the way, all those things happen, man.
Yeah.
All the time, especially here in South Florida for some reason.
Right?
Crazy.
Why is South Florida so freaking crazy, dude?
Because real men are here. You and I are here, and we can defend it.
Perhaps, but why is everybody so freaking nuts here, dude?
That's a discussion for another day, man.
Dude,
many days.
You know what? Here's my goal. In the next 6 to 7 months, maybe shorter, because I really want this to happen. We're gonna have Nick sitting there from Ranger Out, right? We're gonna have Nick come on.
Yep.
Because every time on BNN, Bad News Network, where, by the way,
awesome.
You have listen. There isn't much that I will 100% stand behind, right, from a media content distribution.
Consistently, Nick's amazing with what he does. He has been always, but BNN is his brainchild. It's the best thing he's put out.
By far. It is glorious. And my favorite thing is he always has a crazy news story from South Florida about how some crazy idiot did something.
All my friends send me clippings of, like, a screenshot. Look at what's going on in Florida.
Yeah.
Man,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It's cool here. I like it. It's paradise.
It makes sense for us, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I love it. All right. So go to wisefood.com. Check it out. Tell them I sent you Froglogic, and, man, enjoy your food. All right. I'm sorry for that interruption, brother. All right. I want to move towards, the really shift into something that I think so many people struggle with out there right now, and that's what their purpose is.
Yeah.
And, I think you have this amazing, this experience that you get to participate in every day, because you're literally, right, you're bringing dreams to fruition, right? These young kids, men and women, who imagine themselves as the greatest, the champion of the world at whatever, whether it's UFC or Pride or whatever they're going, Bellator, they have to come through you, many, many of them. And you see them, and you see this construct of purpose. How do you look at purpose in your life, especially with as many places as you've seen, as many, dreams as you've seen come true and dreams shattered? How do you look at and define purpose?
And I go back to thinking about before I went into the military. You remember I said I was a rudderless ship,
Yeah.
right? So purpose is that rudder. It's what gives you your capacity to march on and to have a direction.
Is it relevant? Is it relative to identity as well too?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
If you don't know your purpose, you don't know what your role is in this world, right? And you're just going through it, and you're just experiencing but not experiencing, right? You're just kind of you're responding. You're not being proactive, right? You're not going out with an intention to do something. But if you've got a purpose, you're going out with a specific intention that you're going to execute a certain plan to do something, right? And, for me, I look at my purpose, and, you touched on it so I think I have multiple, right? My number one purpose is to be the best possible father and husband I can be.
Check.
Got to do that, right? The next one is philanthropically. How do I serve? How do I make the world a better place, right? And it's, for me, the thing that resonated the most was serving our brothers and sisters, right? So how do I serve the military veteran community? How do I uplift them, give them opportunities to fight through the darkness, to find light and happiness again? Then my third purpose is, what I do professionally. And that is, like you said, giving these amazing athletes. If you're not a fan of MMA, you think it's blood sport or whatever, I'd encourage you to take a look at it and really understand how hard these kids work.
The stories behind
it. They put so much into it, and they come from such humble beginnings. I mean, literally kids sleeping on the mat of a gym because they come from the favela in Brazil or whatever really, austere, kind of impoverished background, because that's the majority of the kids that come on. And it's their vehicle, to moving on to the next level. But, one of the things is after every fight I go into the cage, and I know you know this because you've been to a lot of my fights, but after every fight I go into the cage, I hug both the winner and the loser.
Yeah, you do.
And, we have this amazing photographer, a guy by the name of Ryan Loco. And Ryan has captured, and he sent to me recently, a catalog of me hugging fighters.
All the hugs.
And
you give a great hug.
I do.
Bro.
I'm a big boy. I give a good hug.
Like when I'm in your embrace, dude.
That sounds questionable.
No, it's not, dude. There's nothing questionable about it. If you ever see Lex on the street, if you ever around him, you see him, go up to him and give him a hug and feel what that feels like.
That's love, man.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it is. But that's, to me, when I embrace them, it's me acknowledging that I'm going through this with you, right? And I'm going to help be a really positive part of your journey. Like, I've developed a reputation of being someone who will put our athletes ahead of the promotion. I mean, all the time, I'll pick up the phone and call Dana and say, hey, I've got a kid that's amazing. He's going to fight for the title in 2 weeks, but I think there's an opportunity now. You should take him. And that's happened 80-plus times in the past 3 years.
Wow.
Fighters that we've put from my promotion into the UFC. And that's our relationship with them is to essentially be their feeder league.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because it's, and I remember the first time talking about it, because you develop these deep, strong connections, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember how when I first asked you about representation and being their agents, right? And you touched on it a little bit before in the conversation. What was the reason why you wanted to be connected in that way at that time?
I was fortunate in that with Ed, my adopted dad, I got to see somebody who had, quote unquote, some of the best representatives from an agency perspective in the world. He was represented by CAA, William Morris at different points of his career. But here's the thing: the great lesson I learned from that is, as I mentioned earlier, Ed was a guy that was making $6 million a year for 30 years. 30
years.
And then died broke.
Wow.
Not a penny to his name.
Wow. And
a big part of that was he certainly made some bad decisions, had 3 wives that all kind of, that takes a toll on you, and lived a crazy lifestyle. But at the end of the day, also part of it was that when he was no longer the guy making $6 million a year and he was making $500,000 to $1 million a year, mm-hmm. they treated him differently. And here's a guy who was an icon. I mean, an absolute icon of the entertainment industry. And he wasn't receiving the standard of care that I felt he should have.
He deserved.
And that he had received for many years.
Right.
But what changed, right? Economics. So I looked at that and I said, you know what, man? And that's why I've had the relationships that I've had for so long. I mean, I've been with Brendan Schaub for damn near 11 years.
Wow.
And not just, he stopped fighting. I still work with him. Yeah. He's still one of my really good friends. And it's because when I started representing him and everybody else that I've represented, Stefan Struve has been, my client for same thing, I think 10 or 11
Essentially
years.
Also your son, because
yes.
he lived with you for...
Yes, for sure. But I think the reason I've been able to have those relationships is I always put them ahead of me.
Yeah.
And, there was times I did work for Brendan for no money, and I did it because I cared for him. Yeah. And I wanted to see his successes. He was struggling to redefine who he was going to be you know, from no longer being a fighter to now being this monster in entertainment, you know, in podcasting. He's huge. I mean,
Massive.
I mean, you and I've seen him do comedy. It's awesome. He just had a Showtime comedy special.
Which was awesome.
He commentates for Showtime for boxing. Like, I mean, he's just gotten so big. But he still calls and talks to me daily. Hey, man, like, I need advice. And I'm the confidant that he trusts because he's told me this before. He feels like I'm the only person in his life. And that's pretty significant when you think about it. He's talking about his family, too.
Right.
Who doesn't want anything from him.
Yeah.
I genuinely care about his success. And I think that that's where, you know, the attitude I've taken with all the people that I've represented and the fighters that I work with, you know, now as a promoter, is I want them to succeed, man. I figure if I can get them to succeed, I'm going to succeed.
Amen.
You know, I mean, it's that rising tide concept, right? And you can be an asshole and treat people poorly and use them to step on to make your way to the top. But guess what? As soon as they figure it out and they walk away, you come sliding down.
Yeah, or falling down.
You know? But conversely, if you have been building people up and then as they're reaching success, they bring you along with them, it's like this foundation of power and strength.
Amen.
Because,
yeah,
you know,
brother.
again, you love each other, you care about one another. I mean, like, you know, the big joke is, you know, here I have this 7 foot, 300-pound UFC fighter that lives at our house, and he's the Manny to our children. Like, he walks to school and picks up my 8 and 10-year-old daughters, and all the Parkland moms are like,
wait, what?
What? You know, but you know, he's just part of the family, and that's the I think the perspective you have to have. You have to treat people really well and care about them, and when you do that, and that's been, you know, my purpose is to care about these people, to help them succeed and realize their dream, and help them think about, you know, because like you said, I mean, I've been fortunate because I've gone through so much, and I've had so many. With age comes wisdom, right?
Yeah, sir.
So I've accumulated some wisdom. You know, I've got some scars to show. You know, hey, I've been through some things, and why don't we sit down and look at this and talk about what I went through and how it can benefit you, so you don't go through it, or maybe you do, but you do it in a different way. And so that's, I mean, you know, what's your purpose professionally? It's that.
Right. Wow. All right. You know, when I hear you talk about that, and especially, you know, you talk about the level of servitude that you give others, right? And you're not chasing fame, you're not chasing wealth, you're not chasing, you know, all these
Love.
You're chasing love.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that the manner and with which you're going to experience it on the deepest level is by making other people better, showing them. Tell me why love means so much to you.
So going back to the question about self-confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a period of my life, and I think, again, it's not an uncommon experience for people, where you question whether or not you're truly loved, and what is love? You know, is it some adolescent, you know, emotion and feeling, or is it on the far end of the spectrum, the ultimate love of willing to sacrifice, you know, yourself for others? And, you know, as you and I both, you know, we understand what that is because we've seen it firsthand. For me, it's always been this trying to understand what love is. And more importantly, I think at some point, you know, fairly early on, I began to realize, okay, this is what I'm missing. This feels really good to care for people and to be cared for.
Yes.
But where the challenge, I think, comes is the expression of love.
Ooh,
and
the outward.
It's
not the inward, the feeling.
No, there's two things. There's two components, two parts to it. Again, go back to, you know, what I've said consistently is the toughest thing for a human being to do is to be honest with himself. So if you're going to be truly honest with yourself, you have to allow yourself to love yourself, right? And people have self-loathing and, you know, all these different, you know, psychological and mental and emotional states that they go through, right? So they're not being honest with themselves. They're not allowing, you know, hey man, you're doing good today. Maybe you had a rough day, but guess what? You're still doing good. You're alive. You're a good person. You're happy. You're smiling. You're making other people's lives good. So that's loving yourself.
Why do people struggle so much with loving themselves? Why don't they get it?
I don't know, man. Because to be honest, I don't. Like, I mean, there's times I tell my wife all the time, hey, you're in control of being happy. You control your happiness, and that's part of loving yourself is allowing yourself to be happy, right? But
finding the slivers of joy that exist in all things.
Life is hard, bro.
Yeah,
Life is hard. Yeah. So you can let it beat you down, or you can say, you know what, man, there's so much good out there.
Yeah.
And even in the tough experiences I'm learning and I'm gaining, that's loving yourself, is allowing yourself to take all of that in and receive that, right? But I think, so that's the first part, is allowing yourself to love yourself. But then it's communicating love to other people.
Oh, right.
And like, especially as a male, I think, I think it's something that males and females deal with in different ways. But I think males really struggle with, and especially kind of like, the alpha male type guys, like
the world you live in, bro.
It's weakness to say, oh, I love you, bro. Right. Like perceived. And actually one of the, great lessons, I mean, I don't know, how long have we been friends now? Like 6 years, something like that. Like, I don't know.
14.
14. 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
So you were one of the first men who got me to say to a friend, I've always felt that I loved my friends.
Yeah.
My
you
guy
feel
friends.
it. Like you can feel it from me,
but there was
sure.
There was never this communication of it.
Yeah.
And guess what? The communication of it is part of what makes it real.
Yeah, it is.
It manifests it, right? It allows for acknowledgement from the other side. So, that's the big struggle is allowing yourself to love yourself, but then communicating.
Taking what's up here, putting it through
and
here,
in here,
and then putting it out there.
Yeah,
right?
That's the challenge, man. That really is the challenge.
Do you struggle with being able to express, like, because obviously, man, nothing's easy.
No.
And running a fight promotion business with as much competition as out there and the other challenges you face day in and day out and your kids and what you got and you live in St. I mean, it's a grind every day. When you are in those moments, right? And I had a beautiful friend, you know him, Jan. Remember Jan the Man Lennon? I'm going to have him on. He's part of the Last Supper Club, which we're going to get started here again, by the way.
I love it.
Yeah, man, it's coming. He said to me the other day, he goes, David, and I was struggling. I was going through some tough stuff I was dealing with. And he goes, David, man, the one thing that my dad taught me, and child of divorce, single kid, by himself, and dad wasn't exactly the greatest dad, but had a lot of influence musically and some other things, taught him how to play, and he's just this virtuoso. And he used to say to me, he goes, David, or he'd say, Jan, when you're in a bind and you're struggling and you're not sure what to do, just love more.
It's not bad advice, man. Like, how are you going to go wrong, right? Like, you think about all the bullshit that goes on in the world. So much of it comes from hate and anger, right, as opposed to love. Someone comes on and loves you. I mean, you may initially have like, whoa, easy with the love fest. But then you start to receive it and understand what it means. Like, there's not a problem that can't be solved with genuine love. Doesn't mean you're giving and you're crumbling to what the other side is saying, but true love is having the hard discussions.
Yeah.
And being super honest, right? Like, I mean, it's just that truth. Those things, I think they're almost, it's not that they almost are. They are intertwined. Love and truth are almost one and the same in many respects. With one, you can't have the other.
Right.
But yeah, it's powerful stuff, man.
It is.
Powerful stuff.
Brother, I just think that is a great way to finish this, is to talk about the greatest thing that we have in our lives is that ability to feel love, right, for ourselves and for others, and then to express it. And I got to tell you, your friendship has made me a better man in so many ways.
Same, for sure.
And Lex, I love you deeply, brother.
Same,
I really
man.
do.
Yeah, you get a lot of great White Buffalo love here, brother.
Always.
A big hug is for you after we're done.
Amen. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man.